Things haven't been going good for Ubisoft within these last couple of years because it looks like everything that they've been releasing has just been a huge failure for them. Most recently, Star Wars Outlaws was a huge colossal failure for them, which kind of caused them to delay the release of the upcoming Assassin's Creed title, Assassin's Creed Shadows, until February of next year when it was supposed to be released later this year. And I don't know why they're going to be delaying the release of that game, presumably because there was a lot of issues with the Star Wars Outlaws as far as bugs and other things like that upon release of the game. So maybe they're thinking that if they delayed it a few months, then they can have some extra time to work out those issues. But I don't think that's going to be enough to save that game, because a lot of the problems that people have with this game is probably because of the whole culture war aspect of it. Because Ubisoft, while they maintain that they haven't taken a firm stance on the culture war issues, there's a lot of indicators to suggest that they actually did take a position. They just picked the losing side in that matter, but I'll get more on that in a little bit. Let's first talk about the collapse of the Ubisoft stock. So we got this article from That Park Place going over the details on that. A headline: financial analysts describe Ubisoft's sales collapse and delaying of Assassin's Creed Shadows as a total meltdown as stock price collapse. A financial analyst described Ubisoft's sales collapse and its delaying of Assassin's Creed Shadows a total meltdown, and the company's stock collapse proves that true. Valiant Renegade reacted to the news that broke yesterday afternoon in the United States that Ubisoft was not only delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows, but that they were reducing their sales expectations for its second quarter by 30% from 500 million euros to 350 to 370 million euros. You heard that right. They're reducing their expectations down by another 30% for a second quarter in a row. Now, keep in mind, last quarter when they did this, at the high estimate before they even reduced it down, industry analysts were already saying that Ubisoft is undervaluing themselves, and then they reduce it down 30%, and now they're doing it again for a second quarter, and they don't even have the luxury, at least after last quarter when they did this, they tried to reinsure their shareholders by saying like, okay, well, we got Star Wars Outlaws coming out next, so that should be a big thing and we should be able to make some money from that. Well, come to find out that's not the case, because after that game was released, then we saw their stock value go down pretty significantly, so shareholders clearly weren't happy with that. And now with no games coming out for the rest of the year, it looks like it's a pretty bad year for Ubisoft, but let's continue on with this. On top of that, the company also revised their entire year expectations to around break even instead of profitability. He described it as a total meltdown. And when they're saying that they're breaking even, most likely they're actually going to be losing money this year, which is why a lot of shareholders are deciding to just jump ship at this point right now. Valiant Renegade specifically reacted to the stock price crashing nearly 20% since the market opened this morning around 9 euros. And you can see that little screen grab right here of it. I looked just a little bit ago. I think it's recovered slightly since then, but I mean, even then it's still around, I believe, like 230 or something a share. That's US dollars, not euros here. So it's still pretty bad and marks around over a 10-year low for them. He stated a little over 4 years ago, Ubisoft was trading at nearly 90 euros, 90 euros, and 4 years and 7 months later, here we are, 9 euros. That means the company has shed 90% of its total market capitalization. And right now, as this continues on, this is going to make Ubisoft worth probably less than $1 billion on the open market by the end of trading today. One of the minority shareholders in Ubisoft, AJ Investments, have said in the past that they think Ubisoft needs to sell off their assets and take the company private, as well as replace CEO Yves Guillemot. Of course, they only have a 1% share in Ubisoft, according to this article, but they've gathered around 10% support in their proposals. So it's just a matter of what actually happens next. So far, Ubisoft hasn't made any statements in regards to this, but Valiant Renegade believes that if things continue along this line, that 10% support they have will grow, and that eventually Ubisoft will be forced to contend with the fact that many of their shareholders are not happy with the way they're running the company. Valiant Renegade even goes on to say, I wouldn't be all surprised if Yves Guillemot may not be the CEO there anymore before Assassin's Creed actually manages to release in February. If, of course, it still manages to release in February, he added. He also speculated that the reason for delaying Assassin's Creed Shadows has nothing to do with Ubisoft's official statement about polishing the game, but has more to do with attempting to ensure the company at least breaks even for its fiscal year. And you would think if they had any confidence in this game whatsoever, then they would be trying to get it out as soon as possible, because if they've been having such a bad year and they think this is something that can actually make them money, then they'd be trying to get it out in order to actually generate some revenue for the year, as opposed to just settling for breaking even at best, according to them. but they don't expect this game to succeed even with a few extra months of polish. They think that this game's going to be another turd because they've seen a lot of the culture war elements that have kind of infested their last several games, including Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows, and they're expecting that basically to cause the game to collapse. And it got so bad they felt like they even needed to address this publicly. We got this from the gamer right here. Ubisoft isn't pushing any specific agenda within Assassin's Creed. At least that's what they say. Scrolling down into this article, they actually put out a statement in regards to all of this. The negativity has now forced Ubisoft to make a statement in its latest financial statement and update, thanks Game Radar, which came shortly after Assassin's Creed Shadows delay, addressing what it calls polarizing comments. Ubisoft's claim that it is an entertainment-first company and that it has not been trying to push a specific agenda with its games. And below is the actual statement that they made on this. Let me address some of the polarized comments around Ubisoft lately. I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company, creating games for the broadest possible audience, and our goal is not to push any specific agenda. We remain committed to creating games for the fans and players that everyone can enjoy. Now, that's what they say publicly, but personally, I'm just not buying it, because if you actually go over to Ubisoft's website, they have this whole page on there devoted to what they call diversity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DI&A or DIA, because they don't want to openly say it's DEI, because many game companies and other movie studios and things like that have started to learn that DEI is toxic. People just do not want to have anything to do with it. So a lot of these companies are trying to rebrand it or do away with it in some other way. I mean, they're still going to maintain a lot of the policies with it, but they're not going to openly embrace it because they understand people are turned off by that. But unfortunately for them, that's not going to help, because when you have that sort of thing infest your industry and actually seep its way into the final product, it doesn't matter if people are aware that that's there, because normally gamers don't actually pay attention to a lot of this culture war stuff. All they know is that the stuff that you're putting out just isn't good and they don't like it. Like many people didn't actually buy Star Wars Outlaw because the game just wasn't a good game and people didn't like it. So that's why the game ultimately failed. They weren't paying attention and know that there's DEI stuff in it, or they're not going to pay attention and know that there's DEI stuff in Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that's going to cause the game to fail. It fails because this stuff is basically just a symptom of a poorly run company, and the people, when you're hiring them just based off of the check boxes, they're not going to be the best quality employees. And that's why a lot of the stuff produced by people and companies that embrace this sort of thing ultimately fail, not because people are just having this backlash to it, but because they're just not good at their job. And that's why Ubisoft, they can try to push this off and come up with excuses and try to delay it and hope they fix it. But the only way to actually fix it is to get rid of crap like this at your company and just start going back to hiring people based off of merit alone, and not because they check whatever box that you're looking to check at this time. Or they can just go down with this ship and just continue along this line. But it's either way, it's not helping them if they just continue on to embrace this, because they're either going to just turn themselves around voluntarily, or they're going to be forced to turn around when everyone just votes with their wallet. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Are you really buying this excuse and think if you just had a few more months of Assassin's Creed Shadows that they can fix a lot of the issues that they have with it? Or do you think this is just kind of a done deal at this point for them? And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.